God wants to have a relationship with human beings. But the problem is, human beings are sinners. So how does a holy God have a relationship with not so holy people? And what do cows and goats have to do with it? So far in our series, we've examined morality from two separate standpoints, or worldviews, if you will. We've examined it from the secular worldview, which dismisses the very notion of God. And we've looked at it from the biblical worldview, which places God at the very center. We've examined the creation of the universe from the biblical standpoint. And we've seen how the disobedience of our first two human parents, Adam and Eve, left the world in a state of chaos. We've seen how their actions impact us today. And at the end, we were left with a huge problem. The initial relationship created between man and God was irreparably damaged. And all human beings born from them would inherit a kind of genetic disease called sin, which, if left untreated, would lead to not just physical, but eternal death. Human beings have incurred a kind of sin debt, which is owed to God, which they cannot pay by themselves. Today, we examine how God enters the story of humanity and fixes the problem himself. As the offended party, God is the only one who can determine how this debt ought to be repaid, and he has decided that blood is the price for the sin debt. The Bible describes blood as both the origin and the source of life. So God demands the exchange of one life for that of the offender. And this is the reason why you cannot pay your sin debt yourself, because you would die. But what if there were a willing party who would substitute for you? God would accept the payment of blood on your behalf and cancel your debt. And that's what the Atonement Ceremony is all about. One could argue that the Day of Atonement is the single most important event in the Jewish calendar, next to the Passover. According to the biblical narrative, the details of this ceremony was dictated to Moses by God himself, which was then passed into Jewish law and custom. Before we go any further, I have to tell you that this ceremony contains some very graphic details. So if this sort of thing makes you uncomfortable, I suggest that you skip ahead or click away from this video right now. But with that out of the way, let's jump right into it. We can break the entire ceremony down into three general sections. First, the representative of the people selected by God, or the high priest, offers sacrifices for himself and for his family. As a human being, he himself has sins which must be covered, or he cannot enter God's presence. Once he purifies himself and his family, he can then freely enter God's presence and represent the people. He offers sacrifices to atone for the sins of the people, and afterwards he takes the blood of those animals and sprinkles it on the furnishings of the tent of meeting where God dwells, and on the entire tent itself. The reason for this is because God says that sin corrupts everyone and everything, and so the tent that God dwells in must be sanctified. After the sins of the people are symbolically covered by the blood of the animals that were sacrificed previously, the sins are then symbolically removed from the tent or the camp where the people live, and from the presence of God himself. Another animal is selected, and the high priest lays his hands on it, confessing the sins of the entire nation upon it. Someone is selected from the people, and that animal is led away into the wilderness, away from the camp and away from God's presence, taking the sins of the people with it. And this acts as a sign of God removing or canceling the debt that has been owed to him. After all of that has been done, reconciliation between God and the people is made by selecting other animals to sacrifice on their behalf as thank offerings for God covering and removing their sin. This process, when done the way God has asked, does three things. One, it covers the sins of the people. Two, it removes or cancels the debt of sin that is owed to God. And three, it reconciles the people back to him, repairing the relationship that has been damaged by their sin. In God's sight, the people are treated as though they had no sin at all, and God no longer holds their debt against them. There are some things we should bear in mind when we look at the ceremony of the atonement. One, the sacrifice of the atonement had to be made once every year. An old year's atonement would not cover the new sins accrued by the people in the new year. Two, the people were asked to humble themselves and refrain from working. By doing so, the people expressed respect for the ceremony and expressed belief in the sacrifices that were being offered on their behalf. To refuse to do so would be akin to saying, God, I don't want or need your sacrifice. And even though the atonement was being made, such a person could not be atoned for. 3, even though the atonement sacrifice was being made, God expected the people to live in a continued state of holiness, and He provided additional rituals and ceremonies for them to atone for their sins throughout the year. The same rule applied for the native Jew and for all foreigners living among them. Anyone who wanted their sins to be atoned for could have their sins forgiven, no matter where they were born. And 5, because of the significance of the blood being used in the sacrifice, the Jewish people were forbidden from eating anything which had blood in it. Additionally, no other sacrifices to any other god was accepted. What lessons can we learn from the ceremony of the atonement? Well, 1, God takes the problem of sin very seriously. 2, God is equally as serious as reconciling the relationship between human beings and Himself. 3, people must believe in what God has offered in order for it to be effective for them. 4, everyone is included. 5, the process is detailed and singular. There are no other alternative. Any offering made, even in sincerity, if not offered in the way that God has prescribed it, would not be accepted. In the next video in this series, we'll look at why God chose the Jewish nation and their importance to us today in the 21st century. I hope this video provided some value to you and was easy enough for you to understand. If you liked this video, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below and leave any ideas for any future videos that you want us to cover. Check out this video right here.